Some people like to read books. Some people like to listen to books. Which are you? Doesn't matter. Which are your readers? Which are your audience? You want to reach everyone in as many modalities as possible. That's why audiobooks are all the rage. They're the fastest growing part of the book publishing marketplace. And today, you're going to learn how you can produce your very own audiobook for your book. Hi, I'm Dan Janelle, the author of Write Your Book in a Flash. I've written more than a dozen books that have been translated to 6 languages. I'm a ghost writer, book coach, and developmental editor, and I can help you write your book. And if I can't, I can refer you to someone in my trusted network who can. Today, you're going to learn how to turn your book into an audiobook with our special guest, Robert Plank. How are you doing today, Robert?
Super fantastic, fabulous, or as Dave Ramsey would say, better than I deserve.
Fantastic. Now, you have produced a lot of audiobooks for people, haven't you?
I have. I've narrated 238, and I think my wife has narrated 208.
Wow, that's amazing. I see people on their podcasts with a wall of books behind them, and I say to myself, I wonder if they've read any of them. And you've actually read and spoken 238 books. That's probably put you in the 1% of people who've read books in the entire world. My hat is off to you. Hey, what makes for a great audiobook?
A great audiobook is one that actually exists. And I don't know the exact numbers, but you always hear these huge, crazy high numbers about the number of books that get put out every single day in the US and in China. But then when you compare that to the number of audiobooks that are out there, the number is shockingly low. And if you go to Audible and you search some author's name, or you search your keyword of your choice, you're going to be shocked at how low the competition is. And even when I search your name, when I search Dan Janelle in Audible, guess what book shows up? A book that you are in with me. So it's and so you need to be on Audible, and it's Audible is owned by Amazon. It's yet one more marketplace to be listed on. But to answer your question, as far as what is required to be on Audible, pretty much all they need is your audiobook cover. So similar to like your Amazon cover, but in a square shape. And they just need separate audio files, each one for each of the chapters in your book. And in the same way as you explain to people with your Write Your Book in a Flash, all you pretty much need to get a book on Amazon is cover and a Word document. It's similar with Audible. You need a cover and some audio files, maybe a little blurb for the description. But just like everything else on Amazon, they want to make it super duper easy for you to have an audiobook, same as with a print book.
Exactly. Amazon loves audiobooks. I listen to audiobooks all the time. I think people do as well when they're working out, when they're walking, when they're going to the gym, when they're driving in the car. They really are amazing. And you're wondering, Dan, how come you don't have audiobooks if you're such a big proponent of audiobooks? Well, I don't own all the rights to my books, believe it or not. They were published by other people, and they have the determination to turn it into an audiobook or not. So I have to beat them up and say, hey, turn my book into an audiobook. Is this something that any author can do themselves, or should they farm it out? What are the points that people should consider when thinking about doing it themselves?
Technically, you could do it yourself, but you should farm it out. The things that are required is, number one, you need a quiet room and a decent microphone. Then number two, you need to put in the time to narrate your book. And a book is usually about 2 or 3 hours. If you have one of those really thin books, it might be like 90 minutes. If you have a big, long fiction book, it might be like 8 or 10 hours or so. And you can imagine that if you are not used to narrating, this might be like a weeks long project. You might mess up and have to redo sentences over. A loud car might drive by. And so number one, have the quiet room and the microphone. Number two, the time to do it. And number three, there is a little bit of technicalities involved as far as the audio processing. Audible doesn't want you to send them bad audio recordings. So there's all kinds of geeky audio settings that need to be fulfilled, like a RMS, noise floor, noise cancellation, all these weird things like that. And so technically, just like you could build your own house, fix your own toilet, you could narrate your own audiobook. But an ideal situation is if me or my wife narrate your audiobook for you. That way it's just done. That way it's listed, and it's one less thing for you to worry about, and one more marketplace for you to attract all these not readers, but now listeners.
That's great advice. I attended an audiobook seminar a couple of years ago, and I thought, oh, this would be cool. I have a good voice. I have a radio kind of voice. I might make a few extra dollars doing this. So I understand the technical part of it. And I auditioned and I read a paragraph, and then I read it again, and then I read it again, 3 different ways. You really sort of have to be an actor. You just can't read the words. There are intonations and tones and inflections, and it drove me crazy. I'm not going to be an audiobook narrator. What do you look for? What should someone look for when they're hiring an audiobook narrator?
I'm not sure if there's like an exact criteria, and especially if you're dealing with a nonfiction book, the acting isn't that important. Like, you don't necessarily have to have all kinds of different, characters or anything like that. But one thing that I have noticed when speaking to people about getting their audiobook created is just look for someone that's reading your book the way that sounds good to you. And it doesn't even need to sound like you, or if you're a male, doesn't even necessarily need to be a male. And I found that was a little bit of a hang up, as you hear people saying, well, I need to be the one that narrates my audiobook, or the audiobook narrator should be able to pass as me. Why? If you read Oprah's book and it was narrated by some other female narrator, or Tony Robbins' book was narrated by someone besides Tony, would it really matter that much? Would it really take away from the experience that much? So just to keep it simple, as far as what you should look for in an audiobook narrator is, does it sound good to you? Are you happy with it? And that's all that matters.
Really good advice. A friend of mine had his book published by a major publisher, and they hired their own audiobook narrator, and he was really disappointed. The person read it with a dull monotone, and it didn't sound like him at all. It didn't even sound interesting. He couldn't even listen to it. It was just so bad. So I think that's why it's so important to get someone with a lively voice like yours. It's very clear, very understandable, exciting. There's an undertone of emotion and a joy in your voice that I think would help any author present their book in a very, very positive light. Now, you said that you and your wife actually do this, which is fantastic. What kind of pricing are we talking about? Because I'm sure people are thinking like, oh, this audiobook is probably ridiculously expensive. What are we talking about here?
Sometimes it is expensive, but in our case, the offer is dfynarration.com, and our pricing right now is flat rate $500. So $500 in 4 days after you give us the manuscript, your audiobook is recorded, it's done, it sounds okay. We send you the first 15 minutes of it during the process, so that way you can listen to the beginning and say like, okay, continue. Or if you want something done a little bit differently, you kind of have that course correction ability. But pricing, $500. And as you know, the going rate sometimes is thousands of dollars. They charge you by the hour, and people make it so complicated. There's like, should I go into a recording studio, or should my narrator go into a recording studio? In this day and age, with home offices, with fancy equipment at home, it's not necessary. So $500 at the moment, flat rate, audiobook is done.
Wow, that's amazing. I know people can talk to certain consultants for an hour or 2 hours or 3 hours for $500. So that's quite a bargain. Frankly, I was expecting it to be a lot more, because I've seen audition tapes and bids and such on Amazon's ACX directory. That's their platform for creating audiobooks. And there are people who charge a lot of money, and there are other people who actually want a percentage of your sales or your profits. Can you talk about that? So your flat fee, your work for hire, you don't get commissions, you don't get a percentage of book sales or anything like that, correct?
Correct. And the way that ACX works is you can do it one of 2 ways. You can either go to ACX and tell them that you've brought your audio files with you. And that's basically what we're discussing today, is that I narrate the files outside of the ACX marketplace, and then I just bring the files and log in under your account and get it all set up. And then they allow you to do it that way, and that's good if like you narrate it yourself, or your publisher has that outside person. And then the other way that ACX does it, which I don't really recommend, is you can post your audiobook open for auditions. And people can, like you were mentioning before, people can send in a little like 1 minute or 3 minute clip of whatever script you provide, give them a few pages of your book or give them the whole manuscript and say, just read the introduction chapter or something like that. And you can get a list of different people who have auditioned for your book. And then you can set the terms to be like, you will pay a set amount per finished hour. They call it PFH. So you can say that you'll pay $100 per finished hour. And then if you have a 6-hour book, then it's $600, something like that. Or there's a royalty share setting that you can put there. But then the problem with royalty share is, number one, you don't know what kinds of narrators you attract that way. And number two, Amazon, the way they split it is, I believe you each get like 20% of the sale each. So with the royalty share, they really kind of limit the amount of money that you get from that. But they give that option for you. Is that technically you could go into ACX's, Audible's marketplace and post your title for auditions, and you can choose to pay either per hour or a royalty share, or the easy way, you pay me a flat fee and then it's done and it's online.
Yeah, and you own, and that way the author owns all the rights and collects all. I'm going to ask this question: does the author keep all the money from the sale, or does Amazon keep part of the money for the sale from an audiobook, just like they keep part of the money for the sale from a regular book?
They keep part of the sale from the audiobook, and much like Kindle, it's hard to tell exactly what. It's hard to calculate like that exact percentage. So the good news about audiobooks and audiobook pricing is that the price point is higher. Instead of sometimes having like a 99-cent Kindle book, the audiobooks, they're either will be listed for $6.95 or $12.95. And it really depends on how much of a cut they take off of that. But what's also good is that, as you know, Dan, being an Audible member, is that all these Audible members, they're already paying this like $15 a month fee to be a member, and they're looking to spend their credits on some of these titles so that way they can listen to things on the gym or while they're walking. So I think that's kind of cool that, number one, Audible and ACX, it's a higher price point. And number two, it's kind of your buyers are more successful people who are just looking to spend the credits that they're already spending money on to have access to Audible. So I think it's just like anything else, it's a different world, a different marketplace. And it's so easy with a few clicks, I get it done. Why wouldn't you have your book listed in the same way that you have your book listed in a digital format and a paperback format? Why not also just be in one other platform so you have one more way of being discovered?
Fantastic. That's a great overview of audiobook production and marketing. I think people should contact you if they have additional questions for their own particular situation. And what is the address for that? Actually, the address will be in the show notes. You can click on the link in the show notes, because I know you don't have your pencils out now, right? Just look at the show notes below on the YouTube channel, and subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't already. And remember to click on the little bell, so each time we post a new episode, you'll be alerted to it. Thank you so much for being with us today, Robert, and thank you for our audience for being with us as well. We have more than 100 videos on how to write your book in a flash, and I wish you success. So right on. This is Dan Janelle. Good luck with your book. Thanks for being with us.